Hello, everybody. How does my sound here? We're gonna give a couple minutes for everyone to show up, to shooting out some pings, of course. Yeah, I hear you now. Nice, loud and clear here.
All right.
How you doing, man?
Good. And you?
Yeah, excellent. Just gonna give some time for everyone to show up here. We do have a bit of an intro as well, just for our recording sake. So we'll kind of hold the intro for now from your end. How's my sound, by the way?
It's awesome.
Excellent. Just going to quickly get some of the others here on the stage and we can get moving. Just inviting a few of the DXdao folks here. For those of you that haven't used Spaces, I think you have to manually accept the invite, or you can request and I can bring you up here. Seeing, all right, the invite should be good for those on the DXdao side. Calling on those pinged in the community call channel. Would love to see Chris, John, Nathan, Sky, perhaps up here. We'll start in just a second as everyone's rolling in. It is a bit lonely without our lo-fi beats that we normally have in our community call, I will say. Once I get one more from my side on the stage here, just to make sure everything's working fine and dandy, we'll get moving. I see. In our own chats here. Those unfamiliar with Spaces, you will need to be on mobile to speak, unfortunately. That seems to be the conflict here. So those are the speakers. Just seeing a couple of requests coming through. Seeing Nathan and Sky, welcome to the stage or the space here.
Testing.
Hello.
Your invites aren't
Excellent.
showing up to anyone.
The invites aren't showing. Interesting.
But people can request, I think.
Yeah, requests will show for me for sure. Right, excellent. I'll hop into the info in a second here, but just for those of you joining us, we're going to have a chat in our regular Discord channel, the Mothership Text. So those of you that aren't in our Discord, hop over to our Twitter. That's the host of this call. In the description, you'll have our Discord server, and you can find the Mothership Text right at the top near the server browser once you're in. So we'll be using that for text. Unfortunately, Twitter doesn't have text, so any questions, comments, feel free to hop into there. If you've been familiar with the DXdao community calls before, it's the same place you might be familiar with. Cool, let's get started here.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Sorry, I made it up. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Hello, everybody, and good morning. I'm your host, Keenan. Welcome to the May 26, 2022 weekly DXdao Community Call, also known as the first DXdao Community Call held on Twitter Spaces. For those of you not aware, we're experimenting with Spaces in anticipation of Operation Decentralization, DXDAO's upcoming and very own live show. We'll be chatting decentralization and a bunch of other cool topics with some fun guests. For this first call, we'll be chatting all about DAOs with our guest of the day from the Ethereum push notification service, which can be found at EPNS Project on Twitter. They're also a speaker in this call. A bit later, we're going to get an update from DXgov, chat a bit about liquidity and farming on Swapr, and a little bit on the Swapr final token emission proposal. As I kind of mentioned before this, if you're looking for live discussion, you can find a chat for this call on the DXdao Discord channels. Head over to our Twitter, who is the host of this call. Go into their profile, join the Discord. All text discussion will be in the Mothership text channel right near the top. You can't miss it. If you can't find it, feel free to ask in the channel, and us or a moderator of some kind will redirect you. Without further ado, let's get into the discussions. For our first topic, we'll have an open discussion with EPNS surrounding DAOs, how they form, how they work, how contributors organize and operate, and how the community is grown and engaged. Joining myself on stage today will include DXdao contributors John Kelleher, Chris Powers, Arhat, and Sky, and of course our special guest of the day from EPNS, Jaff. Big welcome to the stage, Jaff. I'd love if you could tell us a bit about yourself and what you guys are doing over at EPNS.
All right. Perfect. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, loud and clear.
All right. Thank you. I'm Jeff. I run business development and operations at EPNS. And for those of you that are not so much aware of EPNS right now, what we are bringing is we are building the first open communication layer for the Web3, right? So most likely, when you wake up in the morning, you have a notification waiting for you on your phone, right? Whether that's a WhatsApp or a message from your bank or whatever. But you have never, ever gotten a notification from a Web3 service, like a native notification coming from a Web3 service to your wallet address. That's what we are building. In general, our ultimate goal is to enable wallet-to-wallet communication. But we started with a very unique and interesting use case, which is notifications. When you start thinking about it, communication starts with a notification. Just because you get, let's say, a WhatsApp message, if you didn't see that message, then communication haven't started. It's until you get a notification that you say, oh, there's something for me. And then you start generating communication, let's put it like that. So with EPNS, what we are creating is that opportunity. We are enabling protocols and teams and projects to create communication channels with their users to their wallet addresses, to the very same wallet addresses that they use to interface with your platform, right? So let's say you have a loan in a DeFi platform, or you're participating in governance or NFT marketplaces, anywhere. It doesn't matter. The very same wallet that you are using to play in those platforms is the very same wallet where you will be receiving notifications about your activities in those platforms. So that's what we're building. And we, thankfully, we're a project that falls in the communication side of things. So it's something that every protocol needs. We are a protocol in service of every other protocol, because every protocol needs to implement communication with their users. And on top of it, EPNS becomes a tool for user engagement and user retention. Because when you get a notification, it's not just text that is delivered to you, but it's text with a call to action. So if you are participating in a DeFi platform, for instance, and you have a loan that is approaching liquidation, you'll get the notification saying your assets are in risk. But you also get a call to action that when you click it, it's a link. When you click the notification, it takes you to the platform to do whatever you want to do to fix that situation. And that's why EPNS becomes really a useful tool for usability in the Web3 space as well. And that summarizes what we are trying to build with EPNS.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you very much for the intro. Very interested in EPNS myself. I think DXdao has experimented with you guys a couple times already, and obviously looking for a longer term relationship. I believe the most recent Carrot campaigns, we kind of played around with EPNS. So definitely on our minds as well. As for the discussion today, chatting a bit about DAOs, kind of what they are, how they work, I figured, maybe we could do a section each from the DXdao side, and maybe I can chat first here, kick it off with about DAOs. And this is obviously, I think a lot of people here know what a DAO is. I'll try to keep it brief, very broadly. But DAO stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organization. The acronym itself, I think, is the best way to really understand what a DAO is. Decentralized meaning dispersed, not controlled by a single entity. Autonomous, of course, meaning the ability to control your own affairs. In the case of a DAO, obviously the organization having the ability to operate independently, not be obfuscated by government, bank, etc. And then, of course, organization, meaning the way that DAOs collect themselves and work together. So that's a very obviously broad chat about what DAOs are. DXdao, I think we're handling things a little bit different in the sense that we take the DAO acronym very seriously. We're very decentralized, entirely on chain. All of our proposals are on chain, including payment, etc. But yeah, that's kind of an overview about DAOs. Obviously, DXdao as well, handling kind of things in the DeFi ecosystem. But let's chat a bit about how they form. I'm curious if anyone on the stage wants to join me here, maybe John or Chris.
We cannot hear you, Chris. You trying to speak?
Yeah, I'm seeing no sound from Chris's end.
All right. Well, while Chris figures out his mic, I could say briefly that I've seen a lot of Twitter threads recently from people trying to ponder on what a DAO should stand for, and there's a lot of confusion about the A in the acronym. People think it stands for automated, like they use autonomous, but they give the description of automated. A protocol, a decentralized protocol can be automated, but that's not an organization. And in the acronym DAO, we have an O, and that O stands for organization. And a quality that organizations, decentralized ones, have is autonomy. So a DAO is a decentralized sovereign collective. That's at least the way I look at it.
Any update from Chris's side here for sound? Oh God, I don't see my bubble now.
I'm switching back and forth between microphones. I think this one now works.
Yeah, this does it.
Oh, how good is it to everyone to hear my voice? I'm sure everyone was so worried. I was listening.
It's excellent.
I was listening to Nathan though. I thought Nathan was doing a good job of that, kind of explaining DAOs and how they're functioning. And so I think from a broad level, they're like a new way of coordinating and forming, and it builds on certain basic primitives that are only native to blockchain-based ecosystems. So I don't think we really know exactly what form DAOs will take or what they'll kind of be best at. We're still in kind of the initial life-forming goo phase of that. But I do think Nathan was pointing out a good point about how sovereignty is something at least that DXdao values in terms of what is important to be a DAO. And that really means that having the core governance power of the DAO be in control of different things relating to the DAO. So that really hits a decentralization too, because it means that there aren't any choke points that an individual or a company would have control over, such as a bank account, or maybe they have like a multi-sig that does that. So really, I believe if this new form of coordination, DAOs, this new like social primitive for coordinating, if we're truly going to unlock like what it could do for society in terms of efficiency, equity, a whole bunch of things, I think we need to value the sovereignty of those DAOs, because that's what will enable the most experimentation, the most innovation. And so, I think that's what we're pushing for at DXdao.
Yeah, excellent.
And
thank you.
Also,
sorry.
What kind of sparked this conversation when having a private chat with Jav? He asked me a personal question. Well, how do you gel as a collective? How do you organize yourselves? And I just had another conversation prior to this call with Sky. We were chatting. It just happens organically, and we've seen a Venn diagram from Trachyopteryx from YEarn. and this Venn diagram is an intersection of what you are good at, what you love doing, and what the DAO needs. And in the center, when they all intersect, is where, you know, everything converges and it all makes sense. And so it's been a long journey since probably John could speak more of it, but since early 2019, when the collective started growing and onboarding new contributors from the wider community, but it all happened slowly and gradually and truly organically. People aligned with the same ideals and on the same mission, bringing true decentralization to DeFi.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Chris and Nathan here. Just trying to help John get on the stage, having some problems on his end, but kind of want to pass the torch back over to you, Jaff, before
Yeah.
talking more about
Actually,
DAOs.
I had a point on this that they were saying. So the conversation that I was having with Nathan before is it was more because once you try to join a DAO that has been running for some time, then you start meeting all these people that they know everything about it, right? They have so much knowledge of how the DAO have been growing and how it all is set up right now. But it's very difficult for newcomers to jump in and find their ways, because right now Discords are truly very difficult places to find information. And besides, there are so many activities that happens in a DAO, right? The most popular one for most people is voting, let's say, because that's at the end the most tangible thing that you can do. That is very public, right? But there are so many other activities happening in a DAO that when you join a DAO or when you try to join a DAO, that initial part is so challenging right now that that was my point when I was talking with Nathan. How to make onboarding easier for newcomers? That's a challenge right there.
Yeah, good point, Jeff. You just need a solid core contributor community comprised of people with big hearts, wise people who understand that no matter for how long they've already been in the space, it could have been 5, 10 years, they know that you never stop learning. So even when a newcomer comes, they know that they're pretty much in the same boat. The newcomer may feel intimidated. Oh, I know nothing, and these people, they're OGs, they know everything. But if those people are really wise and they have big hearts, they will help this person on board, because they know themselves that they're learning new stuff every day, so they're not much different. And when I initially joined DXdao, I saw that in the core contributor community, and in a way, I've become one myself, and we've been onboarding people and trying to help them. And yeah, but generally, it does indeed require a lot of effort from newcomers. They need to be entrepreneurial. They need to know that there's no one to boss them around and tell them what to do. You have to be proactive. You have to be your own boss, and yeah, it's a completely different mindset.
Yeah, and I think it's like, how can you make that easier for people? And we've been experimenting with a handful of different things at DXdao. We've done some bounties, we've experimented with hackathons, and of course, some things specific to devs, some more to the content side. We experienced some fun times over in the codeless conduct no code hackathon as well. So kind of just opening these doors and giving more opportunity as well for people. Holding the door for those on the way in, I think, is important as well. But it's definitely a DAO problem for onboarding and getting everyone, up to speed and opening that door as much as possible.
Hey, this is Sky here. Jeff, I had a question for you because you are starting, probably, I guess EPNS is starting this journey, but EPNS, as you described, has like the potential to become a very important like middleware or public good in this space, since it's the first communication platform that would allow something like this. And what you've seen is small teams of people that have built, very important, valuable public good type things in the space, whether it's ENS or some layer twos, or there's a whole set of different things out there. And at the end of the day, in a decentralized world, you are going to want to have these public goods owned and controlled and governed by an actual decentralized group of the users and the builders and things, rather than just the small team that's kickstarting it and building it. So I imagine that you have a desire to, some people use the word progressive decentralization, but over time kind of change the workings of how something like this public good would be governed. And so your interest in DAOs and how they're formed and how people can start to participate in things, does it come from that interest, or is that something that you guys are already thinking about, or is that something that's will comes like in the future?
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, we we announced us starting our slow decentralization process last year, and even since we launched our tokenomics during our token generation event, 53% of the tokens were allocated to community, which clearly marks our intent of being a community-owned protocol, right? And right now, this that you were just saying, sorry, it's exactly what is happening right now. It's an effort that has two things going on in parallel. On the technical side, we need to ensure that we decentralize our protocol as much as possible, so that we give opportunity for whoever wants to participate in the protocol, providing a service to the protocol, being really an active participant. And on the other hand, we need to create all the structures and all the organization, let's use that word, all the organization that can handle and take decisions for the protocol. And once you start analyzing a little more the importance of having a good governance, a good DAO structure in place, it's because this being a protocol in service of every other protocol, there are going to be different things that will happen with the protocol, that at some point it's governance who will be taking decisions that will affect the protocol. And a bad decision can bring everything down, right? So right now we are in a process where we are educating our community into how to vote and some of the activities that happens in a DAO. Right now, recently, we are super interested and super into implementing Coordinate as well, because we want to start onboarding people more and more and more. But right now, with our slow decentralization process on the technical side of things, and keeping in parallel the DAO side of things, we are more in the initial phases, where it's all about educating and making sure that we make solid steps towards getting to this point where the protocol can run by itself and the core team can start fading out a little bit.
Cool to hear. Thanks for that.
Yeah, and by the way, it's very interesting because somebody else was mentioning it before. To me, I've been following a lot of Coordinate lately, because what it brings, the capabilities of organizing small groups into doing something meaningful that can keep the community engaged is really great. So we've been looking a lot into Coordinate to start that process where we create working groups and stuff like that.
Yeah, and back to your original question of how people can start to participate in collectives, and yeah, spending a lot of time in a community is the way to really start to understand how all the parts of the community work. But because we have kind of fractalization, so most DAOs have either squads or circles or work streams that are focused on very specific tasks. The better a collective does that and communicates that to newcomers and people that are observing, the easier it is for new people to figure out which of those circles. If I'm really good at marketing and social media, I know that I should come into the DX voice squad of DXdao, and that's where I could probably start to have interest and start to contribute better than obviously the dev squads, right? And so, and then as you do that and you fractalize the different places that contribution is coming from, that's where things like Coordinate, like you mentioned, a lot of DAOs are using that within their circles or squads that then gets maybe budget from the greater DAO, and then there's some autonomy within that squad to use different tools and decide how people and newcomers are compensated. And so we see that happening. Yeah, I think there's a bunch of articles and research that's published on that. I'm pretty sure there's a piece by Peter Pan that really talks about that. But without having that breakup of one giant like overall collective, it is almost impossible for teams, smaller groups to coordinate, and then newcomers to onboard into those groups. And so it kind of organically happens, and you see this with divisions of companies, right? There's a reason that exists, and it is happening in the Web3 space as well. So it's cool to see, but keep in mind that there are, if we can figure out new ways to do this that's never been done before, that's also really interesting. And that's kind of what Coordinate allows. A random, if a collective has, every month they give some of their token through Coordinate to people that have been contributing value, like out of nowhere, like in the community on Discord, wherever. They don't work for the collective, they just decide that they're going to contribute value, they can still get rewarded. That is basically impossible in like the traditional company. You can't just show up to Apple and say, look what I did. I got 100 more people to buy an iPhone. Can you compensate me? They would like look at you like you were crazy. But with a DAO, you can say, I got 100 new people to use your EPNS product, and that collective will most likely want to reward that person so that that person continues to do it, and then other people also start to take initiative like that as well. So big picture stuff.
Makes a lot of sense. And yeah, part of the reasons why I've been following DXdao so closely is because we've been learning from everywhere where we can take examples and take a direction as to how to do things, right? It's still a learning process, and we're getting there. But yeah, thank you. That's really good advice.
Yeah, and some final thoughts again. Autonomy should not be mistaken for automation. I've seen solutions springing up trying to solve problems that probably don't exist. You have people being awarded, oh, if you tweet, you get an NFT. If you do this, you get an NFT. If you do that, you get an NFT. But well, like, what's the point behind all of that? Like, you could have hundreds of people tweeting about something and all getting NFTs. Where's the organization in that? And that's what kind of like Sky touched on. You still need organization. You still need leadership, and you can have leadership with a flat structure in a DAO. You don't need to appoint people roles, give them title of a vice president, director, whatever, CEO, CFO. You just need people to take initiative and self-organize. But when we speak of a self-organizing hive mind, this should not be taken as something chaotic and haphazard.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for speaking so far. I love the everything is an NFT mantra. Can you guys hear me? Seeing no feedback.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, so maybe I'm not sure if we want to chat a little bit more about DAOs before moving on. Maybe just a bit about how communities are kind of grown and engaged, which I can kind of start kicking off. And I think the most obvious way is, or like, I guess the simplest way of describing it would be through good onboarding, which we've already kind of chatted about, and good communication outlets, which again, we kind of have a bit, but good organization structures kind of inherently grow and engage communities, and keeping everyone informed and transparent, I think, is very important. You want many onboarding outlets, as we've kind of been describing, trying to do it with our side. We want to make the process easy as possible. And then our communication outlets, we have a whole variety, obviously, some focusing on decentralization, some focusing on the community. And the most important facet is keeping everyone involved and aware of what's going on. And of course, engagement comes through that. Curious if there's any thoughts from anyone else here from our side regarding growth and organization. I guess maybe Chris from the governance side would be a bit interesting.
Yeah, I think organic is a word I like to think about a lot with DAOs, that it is something that is, emergent orders and other things, something that kind of starts small and kind of gradually grows and adapts as it grows. And so I think the same thing is kind of true with the community and building structure. And so I think there's like this continual like two-step process with DAOs growing, and this is what I think is happening with DXdao, where like at first you need like some initial period of like letting things kind of emerge and happen. And so this is more like freewheeling. It's like who kind of comes into the DAO, what types of things are interesting. Like there's a much more like open mentality. And then once you see certain aspects or certain successes in that like ecosystem over that time, then you try to build some structure around it and kind of implement a little bit more formal structure around that existing like organic force that is already built forward. And then once you build that structure, then you can have another round of like open engagement or open innovation to allow for another round of like emergent order coming through. So I think DAOs like really need to be constantly switching back and forth between those two states, right? One state being allowing open innovation, and the other kind of putting some structure on the successes and things that have emerged from the community. And I think you've seen that with DXdao, right? Like DXdao, I think, has a very like has a long history, but each time it's kind of first things emerging out of the community. Like Swapr is probably the best example of this, right? The idea to fork Uniswap was emerged out of the community, and it took a while for that to develop, but now we have like a structure around the Swapr team. And that wasn't something that someone pre-planned or were like, okay, we need to like scale and build a decentralized exchange, right? It was this idea that came from the community organically and then developed over an open innovation period. And then, now we're kind of in the process of putting some extra structure on that. So I think that's an approach that DAOs can use for lots of different areas.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Chris, we do have one DAO-related question here in the chat on the Discord from Cosmic Grain. Do we need to worry about DAO governance trending towards favoring loud voices, say on social platforms, at the expense of quieter but nonetheless engaged participants? Curious to hear maybe Sky weighing in on this one.
That's a really good question. In some of the DAO communities where delegation is being used, so there's liquid token governance, and then those liquid tokens are being delegated to either some of the early investors or some of the loudest and most popular influencers in the space or on crypto Twitter. And then the decision making is given to those people, and these systems are all very new, so there's not a great way for people to easily take back their delegation and move it around and do it in like a live liquid way. You tend to have a group of kind of most popular people that end up being delegates in a handful of communities. And yeah, it takes a lot of time to be a delegate. I don't know if all delegates are kind of doing it the way they should. It could be almost a full-time job to be a governance delegate in a handful of protocols, but I don't think they're being really compensated. And so that is like one way that people are trying to solve liquid token governance, and a lot of the issues that come with liquid token governance. There are other types of governance, and obviously with Vitalik's recent paper about soul-bound tokens and souls and non-transferable governance power and building online or Web3 reputation and your Web3 profile and all things like that. I think that the space is starting to discover that there are lots and lots of ways other than just plain liquid token governance. Whoever has the most money can buy the most tokens and have the most say. And so as the space is learning that these things exist, and reputation as in Web3 profile reputation and things is becoming a more popular thing that people are talking about and learning about, you will start to see that governance can come out of that whole kind of layer of value and recognition or reputation. Basically, it's reputation. And so, to the original question, like quiet people with good ideas, if the collective is structured well and the forum is open and discussions are open and feedback is taken by all voting decision makers from the greater community, then it takes effort, but there is a good way to continue to allow the ideas that come from less loud people into your community, and getting ideas into a collective and passing them through a collective. It's a little bit like passing a bill through Congress. It's probably more efficient than that, but any idea, so DXdao is very unique. Anyone in the world can make a proposal to DXdao, right? That's not the case in other communities where you have to have a certain amount of tokens or a certain amount of a certain position or something. So anyone can make a proposal to DXdao. Anyone can propose an idea in the forum, and that idea will get looked at and interpreted by the community. And there is a mechanism in governance, holographic consensus, whereas if it's a good idea, it should be staked on, and that idea will rise to the top, and then the collective has to make a decision on that idea that is proposed. So I would say the collective overall welcomes all those new ideas, and if anyone has any, please share them. Anything that will help improve DXdao and the products that it's making are definitely welcome.
Well said. I wish to add something. I've seen people recently bashing trustlessness, and I honestly don't get it. Like, how could you be in DeFi and bash trustlessness? Power is centralized, and basically, what was that saying? Power corrupts ultimately, and ultimate power corrupts ultimately. And so, basically, when you have DAOs with multi-sigs, the ultimate power is concentrated in those people controlling the multi-sig. So the voice of others is in a way silenced because it doesn't really matter with off-chain voting and whatnot. In DXdao, we have the treasury managed trustlessly, and it matters. It's the foundation of everything. Our governance system is on-chain. And also, how can we have leadership and a flat structure at the same time? And Chris touched on it in his talk at the DAOist in Amsterdam. DAOs have to have autonomy and sovereignty, but individuals within DAOs should also have autonomy and sovereignty. And that's how the current setup is. No one can silence me, So if we can appoint indirectly, unsung heroes and leaders that are leading certain initiatives, but the DAO and the community can always intervene at any point they lose trust in that individual, and they cannot be silenced. So this is a trustless setup.
Yeah, thank you very much for the insight from you too. Just seeing John on the stage. Is the mic working now?
Can you hear me?
Oh, loud and clear.
Great. I'm here. I just had to update my app. Forgive me.
That damn Twitter app, man. Yeah, we've chatted about a lot, kind of DAO related stuff. Curious if you had any insights, John, kind of on the topics we've been going through, or maybe even anything on this DAO trending towards favoring loud voices discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I think on the loud voices thing, there needs to be a way, or like I hope there will be a way for people who are less comfortable kind of getting up on a community call or like a Twitter space, like what have you, and like articulating or even just tweeting, right? Like I think there is hopefully going to be ways for people to, yeah, like have a voice without necessarily having to be good at like talking. And like Sky was saying, how anybody can make a proposal in DXdao, like that. I think is in the right direction. I think what we're missing is like tighter feedback loops. I think like if you think of like forum polls and that kind of thing, ways where like people can kind of throw up ideas and get feedback on that idea. I think we're still in like a very kind of archaic form of that, and I'm hoping we'll see a lot of innovation in that direction where good ideas can kind of come from anywhere in a community and in a very large community and become surfaced, and I think we need better tools for that.
Yeah, definitely agree. Yeah, excellent. So that gets through the majority of the primary topics we wanted to hit. I guess, Jaff, is there anything that you would like to touch on while we have you?
No, I was just taking notes about everything that you were saying. No, really. Good, awesome conversation. To be honest, we are in a great position right now at EPNS because we are starting, right? So this discussion that was just happening about loud voices and stuff, we are in a great position because right now is the moment that if you start participating in our community and start participating in our discussions, then you are going to become a leader for the community, and there is so much room for opportunity. But really, it's been a truly great learning experience for me just to hear this conversation happening.
Yeah, fantastic. We really appreciate you being here, of course. Next up on the agenda today is the DXgov Q2 report and update, which I think, Jeff, would be quite interesting to you, our kind of decentralized framework and how we're moving towards that. So feel free to stick around, of course. You're welcome to stay on the stage as well if you have anything to share. And thank you again for your time, of course.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Would love to invite Ross here onto the stage, or I guess the space. I'm sure I'm going to conflate spaces and stages for the rest of my life now. But would love to invite you, Ross, to speak to the DXgov Q2-ish report and update here.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that's weird. There's no like feedback really, or it's delayed. Yeah, so we just published the DXgov Q2-ish report, just because it's not exactly on Q2, but it seemed like the best title. So I guess I'll kind of go over this from a more general standpoint, since I guess a lot of people won't have the context or be working with this stuff every day. But DXgov is the team that's been established to work on and build out DXDAO's own governance, as well as the idea of improving governance across the ecosystem. Yeah, and so this report kind of just goes over like what we've been doing up to this point, as well as like how that's changing in the next bit of time. And the main part it really focuses on is the idea of like legacy support versus building the future. Also, for anyone wanting to read along, this was made in the DAOtalk.org forum that DXdao uses. There's also a tweet went out from the DXgov Twitter handle So you should be able to find it from there, or someone should hopefully post it in the Discord.
Yeah, just super
chat
quick.
for anyone following along. Yeah,
super quick. That link is in the Discord chat, and those of you that have joined us a bit later, you can find DXDAO's Discord link. DXDAO, the host of this call. Click on the profile, and the Discord link should be there at the top in the banner. All of the chat is happening in the mothership text, which is right at the top of the server. Go ahead, Ross.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, so the main sort of chunk of this update is regarding legacy versus building new stuff. So for some context around this, the system of governance that DXdao uses is built by DAOstack, and originally that was shipped with an Alchemy front end, which is controlled by DAOstack, and DAOstack aren't really supporting it anymore, but it's still like the main voting interface meant to work with this. And so sometime last year, DXdao started working on, and Augusto built out basically our own interface for this that can be more decentralized, more secure, because we had problems with Alchemy occasionally going down. And it kind of turned into the DXgov team, and our scope then kind of changed to be more of like an improving governance as a whole for ourselves as well as the entire ecosystem. And I guess the main takeaways from what we've learned recently is that it's quite difficult focusing on both of those, of supporting DXdao, which is like a very, very important part of what we do. As we've already gone over a bit in the call, we're fully on chain. It's all like, it's permissionless, which is obviously good, but is scary from a security perspective. And so having that stable, reliable way of accessing and interfacing and securing the DAO and its treasury is very important. And so the main updates to this is, and you can read the forum post for some more context, as well as details, but we're now splitting the applications that we own and maintain into DXvolt Legacy, and the new application, which we've kind of been building in parallel, but in the same repo for a while, for guilds. So this is taking everything we've been doing, and then just upgrading the UX of everything. We've got a whole new UI, and we're doing a lot of things quite differently in the UI, just to make it a much better experience. And if you're interested, of course, we'll be debuting a lot of this stuff as we're just waiting for audit reports for a few contracts right now. But after that, we will start going into production with this new application, and it'll be very fun showing that off to everyone. So yeah, that's the main part. There's also some more details about how we're technically deploying these new contracts and working with legacy versus old. So if you're interested in diving into like the more technical details of how an on-chain DAO actually operates, it's probably going to be quite interesting for you. There's a lot of stuff, it's very easy for us, or well, relatively easy. Quite a while ago, we came up with all the governance 2.0 stuff, but actually building it is still quite difficult, but even more difficult is working out how to safely deploy and move over to that new system, since there's no real safeguards. If we do something wrong, we have to think properly about security, or else the DAO just disappears. So yeah, there's also a few more bits of detail in the report that you're more than welcome to read through. I guess we're getting a bit short on time now, so I won't go into them. But just generally, we're also going to be trying to be a bit more public as we're getting closer to production. And so if you want to follow along with the development, there should be plenty of more interesting articles coming out. And hopefully soon you'll be able to play around with it a bit yourself.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you very much, Ross. I do have one high-level question just for programming sake here. For those of us in the audience that may or may not know about what DXgov is and what you guys are trying to do, maybe could you have a quick, brief overview of what DXgov is and kind of what you guys are aiming to provide, like as a service? Obviously, guilds we've talked a bit about, but just a little higher level.
Yeah, certainly. So yeah, the original motivation, as I kind of mentioned before, was kind of for DXdao itself. The main goal is just to improve our own governance. But talking to people in conferences and stuff, the focus not very much shifted. It kind of just expanded into, oh, what we're building is actually like other people are interested in. Other people kind of want what we have, what we're building. And so I would say like the high level goal is to, one, improve our own governance. That's with governance 2.0, security, just general like UX and improving the DAO overall. And then furthering that is bringing our own values and allowing other people to replicate that and to have it for their own projects that may be completely different from DXdao, but still want that proper autonomy and decentralization that DXdao values so much.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you very much, Ross, for chatting DXgov with us. As he mentioned, in the chat and in the DAO Talk forum, you can find the post, DXgov Q2-ish report update. So take a look at that if you have not already. Next topic here, only a couple left here and at the top of the hour almost. I want to chat quickly about a forum post that Nathan put together titled Liquidity, Provisioning, and Farming in Swapr. It's a bit of a tutorial kind of running through how to use the Swapr interface and whatnot. Would you like to take that away here?
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, Keenan. To give it a brief prehistory, in most non-custodial applications like decentralized exchanges, where the user is given full control of their funds at all times, it's honestly not really easy to abstract like the whole journey in a single click of a button without compromising on security. So in most cases, users need to go through every step of the way to accomplish certain tasks, and it can be a bit daunting. So the UX is not ideal. The learning curve is kind of steep. So there's this avid need for more educational resources, because the current state of affairs is a bit too much for the novice crypto user coming from the and accustomed to the fintech of the Web 2 world. And having said this, Swapr has always put the user first. Swapr pioneered this unique functionality we dubbed eco routing, and what it does, it kind of gathers quotes from the most liquid AMMs in the space and grants users the ability to route and execute the trades on those without leaving Swapr, and all that for free. So it's kind of like user-centric, and at the same time, I felt like there's still a need to give a bit of tutorial to newcomers how to provide liquidity, farm tokens. And on the topic of that, the tutorial helps guide users through the stages of adding liquidity, staking in farms, and moving stake to new campaigns. But it's on the Swapr roadmap to add functionality for extension of liquidity mining campaigns, which will actually allow farmers to keep earning rewards without the need to move their LP shares between farms. And I'm happy to have EPNS on the call today, because until we implement that contract update, we will be collaborating with EPNS to leverage their push notification service for timely reminders to farmers. On the user-centric side of Swapr, I could also say we are close to releasing a new version, Beta 12, that will actually also feature a novel meta bridge aggregator. It's an integration of all the well-known both canonical and multi-chain bridging solutions in the EVM space. It will allow users to transfer liquidity across networks, because Swapr itself is a multi-chain application. And yeah, maybe in conclusion, I could mention that DXdao has also released an alpha version of a very useful solution for programmable community incentives with conditional tokens. It has numerous use cases yet to be seen, but currently those are showcased primarily in Swapr farms. it's a protocol of its own, but we've noticed people's excitement on one hand, with farmers and teams themselves who have saved a lot of money on their campaigns leveraging Carrot, but also on the other hand, people new to the space may struggle to fully grasp what Carrot is at first glance. So I try to explain a little bit about Carrot as well. Overall, I feel like DXdao is doing a great job with you at the helm, managing the blog, and there's great information resource people could find in the DXdao blog. So yeah, I'm trying to be mindful of time here.
Yeah, of course. And speaking of blog, looking to experiment with Mirror as well soon, so hopefully you can find all our articles wherever you choose to read. But thank you very much, Nathan. Also being mindful of time here for myself, I want to quickly chat about the Arbitrum and Gnosis chain final funding emissions proposal for Swapr token. We'll keep it very, very brief, but basically both Arbitrum and Gnosis chain are going to need some additional Swapr to top up their emissions backlog. So basically, this proposal goes through, what has been emitted, where it can be found, and why it needs some more Swapr. So this proposal actually would fund to the top of the 14 million Swapr allocation in the initial, Swapr authorization proposal. So lots of info there. I believe it's requesting 2.24 million Swapr split between Arbitrum and Gnosis chain. This is obviously going to be used between the cow campaigns and the Arbitrum Odyssey event as well. So important that this gets moved through before the June 9th proposal. I believe the proposal will be up today. And yeah, you can take a look as well there for why it's not exactly 14 million. There's actually 13.93 that would be moved total after this proposal. The big reason being that there's some that's unaccessible from around some allocation shifts. There needs to be some discussions on how the unallocated fund will be utilized exactly. So it will be slightly short as far as requests go, but it will be enough for what it needs, and then we can move those funds around a little bit, ones that we already have access to, of course. Yeah, that about does it from me. You can find that post in the chat as well in the Discord. Just being mindful again at the top of the hour, I wanted to quickly ask, this is a fun little question. Did anyone here have the luxury of experiencing that Goblin Twitter Spaces last night?
In somebody, yeah.
I'll take the resounding silence as confusion.
No.
There was a Twitter space last night, I guess my time PST, for an NFT project. I think Goblin Town is the name, and it was I think 3.5 hour Twitter space with 2,500 viewers kind of throughout most of the call, and it was just, you were only allowed to be a speaker if you spoke in Goblin, or sounding like a gremlin or whatever they have going on. It was probably the most surreal experience I've ever listened to. I put a tweet about it up on my page, and also in the chat here in Discord. So if you are interested in the chaos of the bear market, you can see what crypto's all about here. But highly recommend taking a look at that. It was quite funny, quite fun.
This is what it's come to.
This is what it's come to. The magnum opus of crypto land here. Yeah, excellent. Well, thank you everyone for attending here just at the top of the hour. Much appreciated. I think the first experiment with Spaces was a success for sure. As I mentioned at the beginning of the call, Operation Decentralization, DXDAO's very own show, will be kicking off in the coming weeks on Twitter Spaces. Formal date for that coming soon here in the next week or so. So pay attention to that on the DXdao social channels. But yeah, thank you very much, everyone, for attending. We'll see you next week in the DXdao Discord for stages. And then the week after that, of course, back to Spaces. We'll be alternating them bi-weekly now. Thank you very much, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Keenan.
Cheers.